All right, it's so great to hear from everyone in the chat today. We are live, and so if you cannot see me or hear me, please, we do ask that you refresh your browser. And then we do have that poll at the top of the chat. If you want to just let us know what your role is at your current company, we'd love to hear from you. So yeah, we'll begin in just a minute, and I'll be coming back here to get this thing started. All right, so we will be getting started. Again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. I'm Jillian. I'm the events marketing specialist for the Rosetta team. I will be monitoring our chat today as well as our Q&A. So before we get started, there are just a few things that we wanted to let you know as we are moving through the webinar. So the chat that you guys are already speaking in, it is visible to everyone. So again, feel free to introduce yourself. We love to see the engagement and seeing where everyone is from. We will have questions we do have time for questions at the end of the webinar today. But if you do have questions that you can think of throughout the webinar, we are going to do our best to monitor that Q&A and then answer them in real time. Today we have Hardscape Nate and Nick Lang as our presenters for the webinar, Build Smarter, Labor, Equipment, and the Mindset Behind Profitable Hardscape Businesses. So a little bit about our presenters. We have Nate, who is our sales and education coach here at Rosetta. He has spent 20 plus years helping families transform their backyards and empowering contractors like yourself on this call to grow their outdoor living businesses. And so from pavers to fire features, he's passionate about creating spaces that bring people together and turn everyday moments into lasting memories. And then Nick Lang is the Director of Sales and Marketing at Brown's Concrete Products. They're a trusted manufacturer serving the Sudbury, Ontario area since 1907. And with 15 plus years of experience, he helps landscape businesses grow through smarter product offerings, focusing on profitability, credibility, and long-term customer success. So we are in good hands today with some subject matter experts for our topic. And we just want to say, no matter your role, whether you're a contractor, a dealer, a specifier, there is something valuable for you to take away from this presentation. So for our contractors on the call, you'll gain insight into the key elements of running a profitable and efficient business and how Rosetta can help get you there. And then for our dealers, you'll have a better understanding of what contractors need to succeed and how you can support them in achieving their goals. And for our specifiers, we will explore how to streamline your processes by choosing products that install efficiently, reduce delays, and minimize issues in the field. And so we will be diving into today's topic. So we'll take it away with Nick and Nate.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, depending on where you're tuning in from. I want to thank you. I'm Hardscape Nate, and I want to thank Nick here for joining me on this as well.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me. It's going to be good.
So it's going to be great. Come on. Better than good now. Come on. So thank you, Jillian, for getting us set up here. As she mentioned, we're going to touch on just kind of building smarter, right? The labor, equipment, and the mindset on building a profitable hardscape business. And we're going to toss in there also some efficiencies and selections of product as well as we go through this. So as we dive in, get a lot of questions. This is Rosetta and Brown's combination presentation. Brown's is our licensed manufacturer for the Rosetta products. And so next slide here is going to show Rosetta Hardscapes is a licensee or a licensor, I should say, of the products that Brown's is making, the actual physical products. And so as we dive into the presentation today, and we're talking about some of these experiences and conversations we've had with contractors and guiding through, it's from an expanse of this network. So Rosetta isn't just a North American company. It is a worldwide company. As you can see here, everybody that's listed here is a manufacturer of the Rosetta product line. So from France to Barbados to Saudi Arabia, all the way up there in Sudbury, Ontario, with Browns, ultimately thank you, by the way, the oldest licensed producer in our network. So it has been a great relationship thus far, and look forward to a long continued one.
You bet.
All right. So without further ado, diving in here and make adjustment here to my stage. So we get this pops up a lot, right? The industry has changed. It's not the same as it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. When I got started over 20 years ago now as a contractor, there was a mindset that I could just get more work done by hiring more shovelers, more guys digging the ditch line, more guys digging the trench for the wall. I could toss for the most part labor at it. That was kind of the mindset as I was getting into the business and started and understood that as those years went on, none of that stayed the same. And the stuff that we're used to doing today, the way the industry is today, the mindset today is not going to be the same as it is tomorrow or next year or 10 years from now. And so keeping in mind as we go through today's presentation that it's ever evolving, and having an open mind and thinking through like, oh, that might be a cool way to do something, or I didn't think of that, or I should try that, is something that is, I want people to really, contractors specifically, to really wrap their head around, because it does change. And if you're going to stay ahead and you're going to grow your business, you have to be willing to adjust with it. And so this is what comes up. I showed you the map worldwide. I've had the privilege to travel to many of our producers overseas and across North America, and contractors, dealers, and producers alike always, oh, the problem is labor. The problem is labor. We can't find good people. Nobody wants to work. And I disagree with that. It's not labor, finding the people. It's an inefficient process. As business owners, do we have training processes in place? Do we have onboarding that makes sense? Continued education to make sure that our teams and our crews that are going out are trained at the best they can be, that they understand the steps that it takes to build. Do we have outdated tools and equipment? Are we still in the Hardscape Nate mindset from 20 plus years ago of throwing a bunch of guys on a shovel and hoping we can get the work done in time? Are we using the right equipment, and are we using the right equipment in the right way? So it's not just about the equipment or the tool, but are we utilizing that in the right process as well? And then all of that equals out to a repeatable system that is scalable. And that's ultimately the goal, is scalability. The last one, this is one that is really tough. And I was in this situation as a design build owner. We get stuck in the mindset of an installer mode. And so we're going to go through all of this and hit on it a little bit more individually as we go. But as we go and we like, hey, how are we going to be successful? We're behind, trying to be profitable. We can't hustle our way out of a hole. We can't, if our process isn't right, if we don't have the right training for our teams, we don't have the right equipment, we're just not successful. We're going to burn our teams out. There's chaos when there isn't a system on a project. If we're building a retaining wall or we're building patios, there's steps. Every patio has the same steps. There's, setting up grade and layout of where it's going to go. That's a step. That's the first step. Second step, now we've got excavation. Then we've got base install and base compaction. Every patio, every retaining wall is going to follow those same general steps. Do our teams know those steps? And is there a process for them? Because on the project, if there's chaos and everybody's kind of doing something random, your margins are going out the window because your efficiency is dropping. Just working harder and longer is going to hide that. And it's not scalable. Again, you got guys that are going to be burnt out, injured, and just they feel that chaos and they want to find a company that is more organized. So the cost of doing it the hard way, again, using the wrong tools, purchasing the wrong tools, it's expensive. And not having them, or buying something that all of a sudden you're not using. And so we're going to talk about, the difference between tools and production equipment. And there's a difference. What are tools? Tools are really that hardscape pack. I call it, wheelbarrow on down. Oops, that was me, guys. I'm sorry. Sorry, just trying to adjust here. Screen went funky. So wheelbarrow line down, it's your shovels, your rakes, your hammers, your dead blows, string lines, screed tools. They're items that get jobs done, that you need to do jobs. They're the small items. Now, some of these are going to help increase productivity during your production. And those are things like stand-up screed poles. So getting guys off the ground, not buying crooked 2x4s from the hardware store or whatever the case may be. Getting, whether it's a 2-man or a 1-man, depending on the size of the projects that you're doing, if you can get them up off the ground, you can keep them from burning out their hips, their knees. You've got one guy now, in this case, doing a 1-man screed pole. We can take that second guy that was needed and he can be bringing in more bedding. He could be setting up the rods for another pole farther down the project. So you become more productive and you start to grow out your process. You start to grow out that standard operating procedure step by step. So this kind of piece of equipment or this tool that you have in your trailer is now related to production. Same with something that kind of gets overlooked a lot is a laser level, and not just necessarily a laser level, but a laser level that has the ability to do sloping. So something that you can run sloping grades on. Every patio that gets built, when we do excavation, that subgrade soil needs to be pitched away from the building that you're going against, away from the foundation. And so we have a lot that's going on a project site. We've got our crews out there. They're setting benchmark numbers. They're setting bottom of grade, top of paver, top of wall, whatever the case is. A lot of numbers to keep track of. And so if we can help them, specifically in the start of being able to set grade with a slope for that first excavation, it just helps pick the process up a little bit faster, keeps them from, helps from making a mistake. Everybody's trying to get stuff done on a time crunch. The faster we can get off of a project, we can get onto another one. And, profit margin, that's what we're always talking about. Can we get off this project effectively and onto the next one? So this is another tool that helps with that production. Now we jump out of production and into, out of the tools and into the production mindset. Oh man, I'm really messing that up. So sorry, Nick, I'm going to jump here. So
it's all good.
Production compaction equipment, my screen went all funky on me. So I apologize to anybody that's watching this. Give me 1 second. I greatly apologize. Everything is going funky. I don't know why it all went.
Well, Nate's going through that. Why don't you guys tell me how many of you still have snow in the yard, middle of April? Because I know in Sudbury we still have snow and lots of it.
All right. I think we'll be able to go here now. I apologize to everybody on this. So jumping in here, we're going to talk about the equipment side of it, and specifically production equipment. We're going to hit on the compaction component. That is one of the largest spots that slows down where we can pick up. It's a slower spot in the building process, whether it's walls or paving, and it's one that is so reliant on doing it correctly, consistently to prevent callbacks. And so we dive in here to you see on the screen we've got Weber compaction equipment. Finding the right type of compaction equipment is crucial. When I first started out, I mean, I had the little forward plate compactor, getting 2-inch lifts on every pass that I did, or hopefully getting 2-inch lifts on everything I was doing. The tools that are out there now are so much better, in figuring out and purchasing the right one is key. And I'm a big proponent of a reversible compactor. So in this case, you see a CR6 there in the bottom right. In the upper left is a roller compactor. And I believe that a reversible and a roller are the first two pieces of equipment any contractor should start with. Slabs for paving are getting larger. We've got wet cast, we've got dry cast, we've got large scale. That roller compactor works with all of them. And you're not trying to find you don't have your plate compactor out there trying to find the pad and scuffing them up and things like that. So finding that right piece of equipment, keeping in mind though that CR6, for those of you that know the Weber line, that's pretty much the top of the line. It's got Comptrol on it, so it's got the nice light up screen on the back of it that shows full compaction. As you're going, it'll show you how much density that you've got in that area, or if you can actually get any more compaction in that area. You're doing anywhere from 10 to 12-inch lifts with it. It's a beautiful piece of equipment, but it has just about a 20,000 Canadian dollar price tag to it. So that's a large investment. Now the CR2 next to it, that's my recommendation. We can do a 4-inch lift with a CR2, and it's less than half the price of a CR6. And so what I want to hit home here is that I can do a 4-inch lift, and I'm thinking about my business right now going, all right, I know that the majority of the projects that I do are backyard patios, walkways, residential retaining wall applications. And I'm doing base installs of maybe 4 to maybe 8 inches, depending on where I'm getting to. And so I can do 1 lift or potentially 2 lifts, depending on the project, save the money from the CR6 to the CR2 and be able to pick up that roller compactor. Now, I'm able to do a 4-inch lift. I've got a reversible, so I can compact front, going forwards and backwards, where like just a standard forward plate compactor, the misconception is if I'm pulling that thing back, that I'm still getting some compaction, but that's not the case. The compaction takes place with the frequency output, which is in front of a forward plate. And so in a reversible, it actually changes, and now I can get compaction both directions. So I can speed up my time, and the faster I can get that done, now I can get my screed rails in. I can start laying bedding, sand, whatever the case is, laying pavers, and I can be more efficient on a job site. So thinking about the types of tools, specifically compaction equipment that I'm buying into. One of my favorite ones to talk about is lifting clamps. Whether it's mechanical lifting, vacuum lifting, either one, we're going to talk about both those here in a second. But you're able to do more with fewer bodies, and able to do it safer. So here you're seeing on the left, that happens to be a Probst mechanical lifting device. And that one there, that'll go from an 8-inch block, or capability of closing in on an 8-inch block, all the way out to 48 inches. It'll span out to. So you have a beautiful variety of clamping ability. It's got a mechanical lockout. So as you lower that unit, it'll unlock itself. And when you go to lift back up, it'll clamp. And then when you set it back down, that center post comes all the way down, unlocks itself and you can lift back off of that without having somebody in there with their hands in a pinch point. And just, again, being able to potentially eliminate, in this case, it's lifting a grand ledge corner unit here. I can get my people spread out. I can put somebody, instead of being at the pallet here, in this case, up on the wall, ready to take it and place it on the wall. So I can start to move around and limit my crew space or my crew number on my project. Everybody, I think for the most part, everybody has seen one of these vacuum lifters. Nick, I mean, I know you're a huge proponent of the vacuum lifters, and these guys, MQuip, are in my opinion, one of the top notch by all means.
Oh, for sure. I was really introduced to vacuum a few years ago, and it was MQuip, and they're an Ontario-based company, family owned. Doesn't matter what the manufacturer is, but from a producer's perspective, using suction or a mechanical device such as the one on the left there makes so much more sense than the way we used to do it. Straps and forks and chains and everything else, where the risk of chipping or damaging the product, what does that cost you to return that to your local supplier? Their cost to get it back to you. That's one aspect. There's no pinch points. There's no personal hazards at the block. Sure, all of these could potentially drop a block, but any system could do that. With this, you have reduced access issues. If you have to get into that 3-foot opening, all you need is the width of the product. You're not dealing with hangover. You're minimizing your excavation. And as the story goes, the most expensive component on a job site is the excavation or the earthwork. It's the heaviest equipment. So suction and mechanical is the logical way, in my perspective, to go forward on a job site. It speeds it up. It's fast, fewer hands, fewer moving parts, and it just makes sense.
Absolutely. And in both of these examples that we have up on the screen, they work across multiple materials. So step treads, wall units, corner units. You're not changing things in and out constantly, which is just such a more efficient way on a job site. If you're changing things out all the time, or product specific lifting, which you see one here in a little while, because there is, we've got one. I push this direction every time a contractor asks me. It's just so much more efficient, and that's the name of the game. We're getting paid on the projects by it's labor time. We're not making money on projects by adding 15% to material and all of that happy stuff. The product cost, material cost, those are all fixed into the quote. Where we're making money as contractors is by being efficient with our labor. And so if we can, buy one of these lifting devices and speed up our installation, that's better labor time, right? Like that's more profitable. It's more profitable on the project site. And at the end of the year, that's more money in the pocket. So with lifting equipment, probably the number one item is, do we use it everywhere, right? Like we're going to show walls here. We're going to talk about walls. We saw, right there in that case, walls and step treads a second ago, but taking that into the smaller handheld items and picking up the guy in the bottom left there with a small handheld one, being able to keep our crews healthy, again, more ergonomical, not burning them out, not breaking their body down over time. Hardscaping has had a bad rap in years past of just being somewhere that it's, as a young kid, you go until your body can't take it anymore. And then you're kind of burnt out. And there's just better ways as business owners that we can do things and provide these types of tools and equipment to our teams that make us the destination that people want to come to. Employees want to work for you, which then gets you the better employee, get you the more skilled employees, and helps, again, back to being, more profitable. It helps with training and all of that happy stuff. The tag along to this is the skid loader, the excavator. This is the one that I made a comment earlier that the very first piece of equipment somebody should buy starting out was a piece of compaction equipment. And if you caught that and you were going, holy cow, Hardscape Nate, you're an idiot. Well, no, I stand by that. Skid loaders and excavators are great pieces of equipment. They're needed for lots of parts of the job. Um, but there's things to think about. We're going to talk about selection here, and then we'll talk about that word that's on the screen right now of renting. But when we look at this, there's lots of questions that pop up to what size, what type, what are we going to use this for? And there's a poll here that we have listed that we're going to throw up on the screen. And I'm curious to who, if you're out there, please vote, you know, excavator, skid loader, both. What do you have? What are you what are you using right now as you're doing your work? So we'll give that a few seconds for people to vote. All right. So I believe it's, if you're looking to vote, it should be just popped up. Otherwise, on the right hand side of the screen, if I'm not mistaken. All right. So with that, with a ton of different options out there, things to think about is, with skid loaders to start with, are we in an area that, we need a track machine, or are we looking for a wheeled machine? And understanding that there's a big difference, not just in the price tag of purchasing a wheeled machine over a track machine, but in the long-term maintenance of that, and the different types of applications that they're both suited for. Same thing goes with an excavator. Are we needing an excavator like the one in the top right picture there that's got, a movable knuckle on it? You can see that it's a good size piece of equipment, but it's also compact and can get into a tight spot. Or do we need a really compact mini excavator like the little one that the guy's riding on the bottom left corner, because we need to get through, a lot of fenced areas. We have to get through smaller gates, and we're only needing something for small excavation. We don't, maybe we're doing a lot of smaller walls, garden walls, or seat walls that we don't need a large piece of equipment. As we're getting started, or as you're continuing your journey as a hardscape contractor, these questions are always going to come up. Things are always going to change. Your business is going to change. We don't always have the answer to the exact piece of equipment we need. And so being able to test out and play around, ask other contractors in your local area what they've found to be best, get some of that information. But as we're making those selections, ROI, not price tag. And I mean that in a couple of ways, not just going out and buying the most expensive piece of equipment and going, well, it's all about the return on the investment. I'm going to buy the biggest, baddest one out there. Are you going to get the return on that investment? If we're buying the largest excavator out there, if we're into a 10-ton, 12-ton excavator, because you're like, hey, I'm going to do some big work, and all of a sudden you can't use it on half the jobs because it's too large. No, we're not going to get the greatest return. It's going to be parked, and I'm going to have to rent something different so I can get it in on its space. So knowing your wheelhouse and understanding that is huge. So back to, how much does it cost, over, get away from that, and what does it produce? That's the question. Yes, Jillian.
Hi, Nick and Nate. So we did have a question come through, and the question was, what excavator do you recommend using?
Awesome question. And I'm going to make an assumption that it's asking about a size. The brand, have at it, whether you're a Caterpillar guy or a John Deere guy or whatever the case may be. Um, you know, you're going to have to fit this to each case, the size of the work you're doing, the types of projects you're doing. But if I'm going to put this kind of into a specifics of Rosetta and our large wall units, our Grand Legend outcropping, our machine lay products, really anything from a 5 to a 10-ton machine is what you're looking for. That 5 to 6-ton range, it's your entry level. You're going to be doing smaller walls. You're not getting very tall. The machine's capable at that point. Maybe a little bit on the lower powered side if you're trying to get into longer reach or taller walls. And really ideally the 7 to 10-ton range machine is that ultimate wheelhouse. You're going to have more power. You're going to have faster cycle times as you're placing and moving around, a little bit better control on the longer reach and the higher projects. So ultimately that 7 to 10-ton range is ideal. 5 to 6 if you're doing smaller stuff. Nick, I don't know if you've got anything to add to that, but that would be my statement.
No, as far as the size of machine goes, you hit the nail on the head there. And the other thing is, in a lot of Ontario across other regions, grade, site access, what is the geography we're working with? Is it extreme grades by a waterway? That changes the size and type of machine you have to use. Accessing, just flipping over to skid steers for a moment, wheel versus track applies to, am I doing a lot of shoreline work where I have to climb extreme grades? Wheel, maybe not the best piece for a lot of these locations. A lot of rock surfaces, it's going to skip across. You're going to end up renting a track machine. So what are you mostly doing? Are you in Eastern Ontario where there's a lot of rock face? That is going to impact it versus, say, Southwestern Ontario where you're into more sandy conditions, more clay-based conditions.
Absolutely. And just because we're hitting on it, a whole nother webinar that we'll do sometime is that obviously depending on what you're choosing too is skid loaders are one, wheeled and track. How you charge your hourly rate for those are not the same. So making sure that as you're making that decision that you need to be billing properly if you're doing a track machine. Because of more maintenance and higher costs and things like that. So things to keep in mind as you're making those selections, how to, that you need to go back and make sure that you adjust your overhead and billable hour times. So the overall thing to think about is evaluate the cost per job, not just the purchase price. You can read through it. My biggest one here is you got to think about your cash flow. You have to think about where you are in business. What is it going to do to how much you're going to charge? Can I afford it? Stop making the ego purchase. The picture at the bottom, stop thinking that I need to have the F-250 King Ranch model with a big old, deck over trailer on the back and a brand new John Deere latest model excavator, shiny, because, all of a sudden I feel cool going down the road and everybody sees it and thinks that I'm making it. And the sad part is that you can look really cool going down the road and be broke all at the same time. And so, as you're making these decisions of the equipment, that the ego purchase is tough. The thinking that equipment behind the truck or whatever the case is, means that you've made it. That's not the case. And that leads us into, ultimately the rent first, buy later mentality. That's where I go back to the compaction equipment and the lifting devices are ultimately the two most important things to purchase. They're the harder things to find to be able to rent. There's not a lot of places that you can find to rent a lifting clamp or that you can find to rent a quality piece of compaction equipment on a regular basis. And if you're doing if you're doing walls, you're doing backyard patios, walkways, driveways, whatever, you're going to be compacting subgrade soil. You're going to be compacting base materials. You're going to be setting pavers into the bedding with a roller compactor. You're going to be utilizing those items on a more regular basis. the amount of time that you're going to be potentially using that excavator may be less in the beginning. And there's 12 months to a year. So when you buy a brand new 80, $100,000, $110,000 piece of equipment, excavator or skid loader, I'm pretty sure Ontario is similar to Wisconsin where I'm at. There isn't 12 months worth of construction time. There's several months with white stuff on the ground. And so I still have to store that piece of equipment. I still have to pay insurance on that piece of equipment. I still have to pay my loan on that piece of equipment. And so if I'm not able to put it to work on a very regular basis where I can keep my cash flow up, let's start looking at renting. Let's rent that piece of equipment up to the point of where I now need to, all right, I've gotten to a point where I'm renting it every day. Yeah, now I need to own it. That makes sense. I can bill for it and I can cover it. So thinking about that, buy those other pieces of equipment, those smaller pieces that are being used more regularly, and rent those items that are more on the side of I only need them for a few hours, a few days a week, and start that way. It helps you again maintaining cash flow. 15% of businesses go out of, or 15% of hardscape companies go out of business every year because of cash flow. That's an industry statement. So keeping that in mind. Again, back to we've hit on it. Don't buy the machine to feel established. Buy them because the business demands it. So Nick, I'm going to let you kind of take over here because we're going to dive in. We've gone from starting out discussing kind of the people portion of it into equipment and talking about those efficiencies and things to think about with those items on a project site and building out a business. I want you to take over here on what Brown offers from some product standpoint to what helps these guys be a little bit more efficient on a job site, or things to think about as they're selecting material.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nate. So yeah, we talked about the efficiencies that come with labor, equipment, etc. There's still the side as product. You have to install something quickly. You want to be efficient. Time is money. I learned a long time ago from somebody very wise. We're in this industry and we're selling time. It's not about square feet. So if you can maximize what you're doing in less time, you're being more efficient. Very broad statement. At Brown's and with Rosetta, our flagship products are the walls, the big walls. You get repeatability, you get consistency, you get the design and the resource assistance that comes with an engineered, manufactured product. So we're going to go into those here. This picture is symbolizing the fact that we can create a wall as high as you want it to go, because there's design and engineering resources to allow you to do that, sit all the way down to a 2 or 3 foot wall. The product allows you to create whatever wall you want it to create. You're not limited to, I'm going this high, so now I need such and such a ton of natural stone, for example, where you're paying for depth. Here, it's consistent. When you're installing the walls, the Rosetta walls from Brown's, it's no different than another wall system. There is an anchor system, so the heel on ours, or an interlock on the other walls. You have your drainage, you have your fabric. The principles are the same. So those of you that install big walls, the principles haven't changed. Everything still installs the same way, but you have some speed on your side with a product that you can calculate and you can predict. What's the first one? Grand Ledge. That's our flagship. It's been around over 6 years now, and it's the #1 selling wall from Brown's, and dare I say all of Rosetta. But this wall came out of the principles of, we want something consistent, so 12-inch height. And look at the world of guillotined armor stone or snapped armor stone. It's the same height. It bangs out relatively quickly. What can we do to maximize the contractors? Grand Ledge is that. You have a 12-inch high wall, multiple lengths, and again, it comes with all.
Real quick, Nick, before we jump down to the next one, there's a poll there that I want to get, if possible, everybody to kind of click on. Is ultimately who's used Grand Ledge? I believe Jillian's kicking up right now.
Yes, and we also had another question come through. The question was, do you prefer an aggregate base or poured concrete footing for your wall installations?
Oh, great question. Actually, Nick, if you want to back up to that last one.
Yep. That one there?
Oh, it might be covered. Should be one more. Yeah, right there. There we go. Yeah, Nick, I'll let you take that question. I'll add anything. I'll interrupt and add whatever my 2 cents is later.
So when it comes to aggregate versus a concrete footing, it is a loaded question because it really depends on the application. Standard practice is your aggregate base. That'll always be the standard. It's the status. It's perfectly acceptable. Where I love seeing a concrete footing is where you're building by a waterway, where you have uncertainty about what's going to happen below grade. Are you on the windward side? Are you on a stream? Are you building on rock? Because if you're building on rock, you now naturally have a slippery surface because the odds are it's going to be sliding towards the water. So you want to somehow pin that wall down. So a concrete footing allows you to manage the inconsistencies of the rock, create effectively a base course, and go upright. The other really good application is very unstable base material, because you can create a concrete footing like a beam using a lean concrete, and eliminates or alleviates a lot of those issues. A problem that comes up with concrete footing, or a perceived problem, is how do we drain around a concrete footing? There's a couple ways to do it. You can put drainage through the footing. You can tie in to the footing and have a pipe go right out the face. Everything's locked in, it's stable, it's not going to erode. You can go underneath. You still have to have a base if it's a gravel base, let's call it, and you want a concrete footing for stability because of what's underneath, fine. In behind your concrete footing on a waterway, you're already adding a greater amount of aggregates to absorb and hold this water to allow it to permeate through the wall at a reasonable rate. So there are ways to deal with it. There's lots of engineers that have managed it. And in fact, there's conservation authorities down here now in, call it, the southern regions of Ontario, that are preferring a concrete footing using these large walls on a waterway.
Yeah, and there's loads of resources for this on the website as well. So if people want to go to the Rosetta hardscapes.com, and underneath whatever product, there's cross sections and things like that for different bases. Absolutely. And I think the biggest takeaway is just, it is so application based, that don't get into a mindset. And I know this one on the screen here shows an open graded base because the drain tile's down in the bottom of that base. There isn't one way to do something, and be open to figuring out, like, hey, it's not always going to be open grader. It's not always going to be a concrete footer. It's not always going to be a dense graded base. What best suits my project? And I always say, get away from the social media, trend of the day, right? Like that, I feel guys get hung up in, oh, I see everybody's doing this or doing that, I should be doing that on all my projects. And that's not necessarily the case. Yeah. So anyways, we killed that one to death. Hopefully we answered it.
Oh, I think so. And if you have more questions and you want to know more about it, you can reach out to us. All the information will show up at the end of the presentation. So back to Grand Ledge. For Grand Ledge, a basic skid is 18 square feet, 12 inches high, 4 different lengths, so you get your variety of lengths. That allows your bond lines. There's no rules. You're not trying to do a 50% overlay because every block is the same size. You have a lot of flexibility, a lot of speed is associated with Grand Ledge. Corners and coping. There's a corner pallet, has 4 different lengths on it, a couple different depths, and that'll show up later on in the application. But the corner pallet was designed to allow you, as you're building your wall, to naturally have a setback. There's no rules with that. You don't have to use a corner in a corner application. Corners can be used as coping. Again, we'll show that a little further down, how that looks and how it could be applicable. We also have a coping pallet. The coping pallet is the piece on the far right. It's 54 inches and they're all the same. It's a little narrower, but all the coping and corners are finished on all sides. So it allows you to have a top block if you need that. end blocks, corners, coping, freestanding applications. Okay.
Real
Yeah.
quick, I just want to throw in for anybody that might not be in the Ontario market that's watching us, the coping that you show here, you guys are doing very specifically the 54-inch long unit. There is a second unit that some of our other producers do make. So if you're watching from somewhere else, do check your local area and their tech guides for how they're packaging it. You guys have found success by doing the 54 by itself with 4 of those on a pallet. So again, in case somebody's watching this going, well, wait a minute, there was another one and I'm confused. There technically is, depending on where you're looking in from. So
thanks, Nate. I should have said that there will be some variations here for our friends that are joining us from outside Ontario, for sure. This shows just a corner installation. It's a basic install. Again, showing there's no crazy science here. It's a finger joint. It's like a dovetail effect. That's your basic way to build a corner using the corner blocks. And it'll give you a natural setback if that's the way you want to go. One thing I like to remind contractors is think efficiencies. If you're building a wall and you want to be extra efficient, you can eliminate corners and the coping block can fit into that spot. There's nothing saying it can't. So you're taking one SKU off the job site. You're now down to a wall and a coping, and it goes back to waste, efficiency, speed. You're not flipping between 3 products, you're flipping between 2. Here we have a picture showing the corner blocks in a coping application. Now, if you look there where the arrows are pointing on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see call it a jagged finish. This homeowner wanted that finish. That's the look they wanted, very reflective of a natural stone application. A lot of people don't want that. They want a uniform look. So that's where the actual coping unit that's been created, that we produce, will give you a clean line finish. This works. So again, very flexible, efficient. You can maximize what the customer is looking for. And there's that coping unit again. This is showing just a nice sort of close-up shot of the grand ledge, showing the lines, how everything blends together. Coping units on the ends. They're finished. So again, if you have to fade into a grade or come out of a grade, it's a very easy way to do it. You're not cutting corners. Very rarely will you ever see a saw on a grand ledge job site. It's basically effectively not required very often.
I hope not, because that's a 12-inch cut. So
yeah, that's not fun. The back of the block, both outcropping and grand ledge, we'll get into outcropping. They have the heel on the back, the shear heel. That's your interlock with the row below. So when you're laying your blocks, it just slides in from the top, hits the low block below, and you're lined up. That metal hook there is sort of the OG way to install the big walls from Rosetta using a proprietary hook. You can get away from that hook or lifting device by using suction or mechanical. That hook is not a mandatory piece. It comes into play on certain engineering applications, depending whether you're using outcropping or something else. We go into the base course a little later on, so I can cover that there. Okay, go ahead, Nate, here.
Excuse me. So the proprietary lifting device is what you're seeing in this installation. It was designed when we first came out with outcropping. That was the original product by Rosetta, and as you see in a little bit here with the different faces and things like that, this made it easy to install. As Nick mentioned, now you can use other mechanical lifting devices, vacuum lifting devices, whatever the case may be. Also, with those shear heels on the back, that's giving you your setback as you're installing all those units up from the base course. The hint that I would give, and I'll let Nick talk more on base in a second, but as you're setting that first course, you're going to want to use a 3.5 pound, 4 pound maul sledgehammer and blow those shear heels off the back, off the bottom of that first course, that base course. That'll give you a nice flat bottom. So as you're going across, just speeds up the installation of that unit. So you're not trying to embed those down into your gravel, or if you did pour a concrete footer, then obviously that's a bigger issue. So you just knock those off the bottom, and away you go.
Thanks, Nate. Yeah, as Nate said, if you're doing a concrete footing, that first row of block would just tie into the back of the concrete footing, so you don't even have to touch them. Here we're just expressing the radius. You can do a minimum 20-foot radius on these walls. It's not a rule in the sense of it has to be 20 feet. If you want to go tighter, or you have to create a tighter radius, use the smaller pieces into the corner and spread your larger pieces out on the straights. You can do that. Keep in mind, if you're getting into that, that means you're opening a lot of skids all at once. So think of your efficiencies as you're doing this. Can the radius be adjusted so I'm using full skids at a time versus opening 10 skids to pull the small blocks?
The beauty is that with the 4 different lengths of Grand Ledge to start with, we're not working like with bond lines like we do with a standard SRW unit, like a 6-inch or 8-inch square foot face. You're trying to get half bond. Grand Ledge is meant to have that random length look. So if you do tighten that up and you're using those smaller units, just make sure you're not stacking bond line on top of bond line. And then, yeah, as you get out into that long stretch, like you said, I mean, you're just playing, as long as you're getting overlap, there is no right or wrong unit length to go next. There isn't a pattern. Set and go.
Yep, you can't mess up the pattern because there isn't one. Then we also have dimensional steps here. We have a 6-foot unit by 30 inches by 7 inches high, and we have a 4-foot by 18 by 7 inches high. They work very well with the walls. This is our number 2 leading product behind Grand Ledge is our steps. You'll see a couple pictures where this is used as coping. One beautiful thing about these 6-foot steps, that limited availability is in other products, is the idea of a sweeping staircase. Because they're 30 inches deep, you can do a full sweep on a tight radius in an application, whereas a lot of other, call it manufactured products, are much narrower. So you have a limited radius, or you get into natural stone steps where your tread thickness is changing. So the 6-foot step is very, very, very good for those sweeping staircases. And then the 4-foot is great for, you'll see in a coping application or just a smaller staircase. Here it is used as coping. Now, again, these walls Grand Ledge doesn't necessarily require a coping. It does have a slightly raw finish on top, but you can either use the coping unit or a step unit. What's the look you're trying to achieve? Do you want a straight line edge so you can put lighting underneath it? Is there going to be a weir for some kind of water feature? Maybe the step is the better option. Or do you want a rugged wall that looks like just a wall? Well, then you'll go to the coping unit, right? This gives a more refined look.
And the beauty of putting light, under cap lighting on these walls, makes them look so awesome. And so that extra little hangover is obviously an added benefit then.
Oh, for sure. And then here we just show, this is just letting us tell you that we have an umpteen amounts of resources. You go to the Rosetta website, there are so many cross sections, preliminary height layouts that you guys can explore yourself. You don't need a degree. You don't need a special access. You can just get in there and find what you're looking for. Find the prelims, PDFs, CAD files, backup calculations. Everything's there. This is just showing a gravity wall application, for example. And here we have a reinforced, much taller wall of Grand Ledge showing a grid application. I'll touch on it here real quick. If you guys want more technical resources, there's the tab at the top. It's on the Rosetta website. If you want a bit of a tutorial, just reach out. But what's nice is if you know the height of your wall, the application, what's the loading, you can go in and punch in those numbers and it'll spit back a suggested wall design, whether it's gravity reinforced or cast in place. Cast in place is a hybrid between reinforced and gravity, where you pour concrete in behind and it buys you a few extra feet of height without requiring the depth that a reinforced with grid wall would require. The next one is outcropping. Outcropping, and there is a poll up there before I go in there. It just popped up. Won't miss this one. Have you guys used outcropping? For us here, it was the first product that Brown's made when we sort of joined the Rosetta family there, and it's definitely a legendary product. So we'll just give that a few seconds to go. Oh, there we go. We're getting somewhere on this one.
Yeah, it's jumping around. I like it.
My favorite are those that are saying no. Those are the best ones. Those are the ones.
Absolutely. It was
Just so this is
definitely
going, outcropping came out of the world of again, armor stone. The
yeah.
idea of natural stone is an absolutely gorgeous product. I will fully admit that. It is absolutely gorgeous. So let's replicate that in a way that's consistent, engineerable, designable, repeatable, color control. The worst thing that can happen to you is you've done a job for a client who's ecstatic and they've paid you for the job. 4 years later, they want to do an extension. If you're using natural stone, you're at the mercy of where they are in the quarry. With outcropping, will there be a slight color variation from 4 years, 5 years? Sure, that's natural. But you're going to get that exact same product again. And you can extend that product or project, sorry. So
And real
outcropping,
quick, before as you dive in, I'm going to make my little disclaimer real quick. Obviously, your palette layout for outcropping is going to be different than a lot of the other anybody outside of Ontario. This is going to be a little bit different, just as the coping units were for Grand Ledge. So
yeah, I'll explain that. I'll hit on the points just for those of you that are looking from outside Ontario. Here's pallet A. Pallet A is a standard pallet across everything. 18 square feet again. So if you notice, Grand Ledge is 18 square feet, outcropping is 18 square feet. If you want a blended design, there's actually nothing stopping you from doing that. This is all 12 inches high, 4 variable lengths. And you'll notice on the blocks, they're marked on the back. So you want to find the length. You don't need your measuring tape. You don't need to walk over. You can see it from a distance. You know the piece you need. The B pallet, again, B pallet is a standard pallet configuration. It blends 6 and 12-inch high units, again, completing 18 square feet. This pallet is great for breaking up lines. A pallet dominates in the sense of 12-inch installs, very much like armor stone. You want to break a line up. You want to create a grade change in using 6-inch increments instead of 12-inch. This skid allows you to do that. You have to do certain step returns where you want to blend a wall in. The 6-inch blocks, again, they allow you to do that. They're a very, very useful multi-purpose pallet. Here's the one with the little flashing light that will vary. We call them G and H. In the Rosetta lineup, these blocks exist, but they're D and E. So this configuration is there. We've just switched it up a little bit. This is freestanding. Freestanding is just that. It can be a freestanding wall. It is the corners for outcropping. It's the coping for outcropping if you want coping. Coping has a finished surface, so by no means is it required. The 6-inch step here again. You want to do 6-inch rises through a wall. You can blend those in and use them as steps into the wall system. These are a very versatile block. They're an accent block. They've been used in water features around pools. I don't know what it's like in the rest of the markets, but diving boards are a big issue around pools. You can use that 6-foot unit, cantilever it, and you just gave that family a place to dive into the pool from. I've seen that probably half a dozen times over the last few years already. Okay, here's 2 pictures. The top picture really touches on the freestanding. This is a job here in Ontario, and what I love about this is this wall came down and then right away turns right back up the stairs. It's freestanding, it's finished on both sides. It allows you to have that full reveal and a staircase without having to double up blocks. You're not worried about the raw back of a piece of concrete. And what's nice about this too is if you have to come down and you got to turn up, most systems are a 90 degree or you're cutting into a 45. Here, you can come in as tight as a hairpin turn using freestanding, and the wall can creep right back up itself to have another staircase. This is a big waterfront job where access to allow big staircases was there, but they had to be careful because you're going to eat away at usable space. So this allowed the staircase to creep down the wall. The wall at the bottom shows a very manageable wall, a couple feet high, using A's and B's. You see the blend of the 6s and the 12s. Again, it's a waterfront, and there's some steps in the middle. This is probably my favorite job. This has been around for a very long time. This, again, shows outcropping in the sense of radiuses. There are more twists and bends in this job. There's enclosed spaces. There's grotto effects. This shows you what outcropping can do. There's some random steps built into there at the bottom. Outcropping is very creative. So when you're thinking of using natural armor stone, outcropping will do that. It will do the same things, and you know what you're getting every time you get it. You're getting a repeatable, consistent product. where you have choice on color. So here, Nate will take on the bottom half of that screen. I'll do the top, but all this shows is those shear heels. And when you knock them off on a base course over gravel, if you're going on concrete, you don't have to knock them off. Picture an upside down smiley face, a frowny face right above that shear heel. You smack that about twice and each falls off. I have done it many, many times on sites and as demos. It's really easy. And 95% of the time, the entire shear heel falls off cleanly.
Absolutely. And the bottom one there is just showing the layout for outcropping as a base course. And everybody that's in the Ontario market, the 2 units to the far right there, those are units that are not produced by Browns. So that's a 24-inch tall unit and an 18-inch tall unit. So ignore that. But every single shear heel, as we jump through those heights, is 1.5 inches difference. So we've got 1.5 inches depth difference from our 12-inch tall unit to our 6-inch tall unit. And then so on and so forth. So as you go to the 18 and the 24, it's an additional 1.5 inches. And so when you're setting your base course, when you were using those other heights, you would set based off of your 24-inch tall unit, and then you would adjust off your string line 1.5 inches forward of that main one. But for everybody in Ontario, where there's the 12s and the 6s that are being produced that you have access to, that A pallet and that B pallet, my recommendation is not to use, you can structurally, you can use 6-inch units on the base course. There's no problem with it. But utilizing that 12-inch makes things a lot easier, makes things a lot faster. So you set your string line, use your 12-inch tall units, your full A pallet, set your base course. And I mean, everybody's base course is going to have some sort of embedment to it, a 6-inch embedment typically already. So nobody's going to know that you are using all the same height anyways. There's no issue there. There's structurally works great. And there's nothing, you just go, you set those, you start filling in the rest of it and you fly. Those of you outside of Ontario that are using the 24 and the 18-inch tall unit, you're just using, like I said, that string line basis off the back of the 24 and then measuring forward if you're using those other heights on the base. So what I like to say is it sounds complicated. It sounds like, oh my gosh, I don't want to try this. When you have an outcropping project, if it's your first project, for those of you that said you've never used it before, reach out to Nick and I, and we are more than happy to help guide you through it, potentially be on site on your first project and work through all that, because it's not as complicated as it can tend to look at times. So,
yeah, no, it's very simple. And 95% of contractors that I've dealt with, they lay a 12-inch base course, and then you climb from there for the very reasons you said, for sure.
Yeah.
So here just shows a reinforced wall, again, showing the amount of information that is there for you on a section, on a drawing. We have the paraweb at the bottom. That's used in outcropping reinforced applications. That's where you're going to see that come up. How it ties back. We have the guardrail on this one, the loading. If you need these cross sections for an engineer, for a city, for permits, all the backup calculations come with it. We don't hand you a PDF and say, here you go. We send you everything. Everything is available. CAD files, you can input it right into your drawings for submissions. There's a lot of resources there. Vehicle impact, post-base relation to the grid, tiered walls, a lot more than what we're going to touch on here is on the Rosetta website. So feel free to explore it. And if you have questions, ask again, reach out to Nate or I. And here we have the random steps. The random steps are incredible because there's no rules when it comes to the random steps. It's just like a natural step. The 6-foot step, there's a few different, basically a couple different faces, but they're quite uniform that way. 3 on a skid. The 4-foot length on the side, on the left. Now it's on the right. There's 4 different faces or 4 different configurations, 6 on a skid. Okay, so at the bottom, it shows you exactly what's on a skid. They're great for all kinds of applications. You want them as an accent, stepping stones, steps, They can be used in, again, a coping application. You'll see that. And the big 6-foot step, you want to incorporate a sweeping stair, but have it really rugged and natural. There you go. Installs just like any other standard step. You throw your suction onto these steps right after you're building a wall. You're not switching equipment. You can just race right along the wall, and it's the person on the ground can't keep up with the machine. Like, it goes in that quick. This shows you the texture and the makeup of outcropping. So here's outcropping with random steps, no coping. It looks finished. So again, coping's not required. This just goes to show you what it looks like, how it can go, what you're going to give your customer, add in speed and efficiency. And these are incredible, incredible projects. Here is the random step in a coping application. Nothing is cut here. They're using the natural configuration of the step to create this coping. Is there a rule or a design for how this goes together? No, this contractor created this based on the application. But you can do this. This is a very nice way to put a coping on a wall. So they created a 7-inch coping on a wall that's based on 6 and 12-inch increments. And again, you offset everything forward. Great place for lighting or running other wires or lines or something else that you're doing. Okay.
So I can take over here for a minute.
You got this one.
On the resources. So you can reach this right from the Rosetta website. It's the outcropping layout app. You can download it. So free to download. And you're going to get basically a graphed design screen that you're going to be able to lay out whatever your wall height is. You can set the lengths that you need. So as you're filling out a project, or as you're trying to design a project with outcropping, whether it be your first project or you've got a complicated project where you're trying to build between two solid structures, you got two foundations that you're trying to, fit in between, and you're trying to map out, how am I going to lay this out when I'm on site? Which length should I be going? You can put all that into the layout app and actually place each unit in to know exactly the mapped out schematic that I should follow to lay. So the exact pattern. And on that graph paper there on the top of the screen, it's going to have labeled out, it's color coded and labeled with the same code that's on the back of the block. So again, a picture of a pallet there on the left shows, in this case, it was a C pallet, 2 foot tall, 4 foot long. That code is on that printout that you get. So you can give that to your crew, to your foreman, and everybody that's going. So from the person that's at the pallet, selecting the product that needs to go next, to the person in the wall, they can have that layout and know exactly which piece is going next, one after another, and fits exactly into that. So just helps to speed up your installation when you're new to the product, as well as in, again, those complicated projects that you might be getting into with a lot of different points that you need to hit exact for stairs or foundations or whatever the case is. It's not to say by any means that once you get used to outcropping, you do not need to do a layout. There's probably a good majority of guys, once they've gotten the hang of it, they just start going and playing with it. There isn't a set pattern that you have to lay, but when you're in those applications that you need to know exactly, you've got the capability and you can download that right off the website. So diving out of products, some of the most frequently asked questions regarding specifically the products that we've been talking about. The first one is, can I install this in a water application? And the short answer is yes. The products hold up. Wet cast products tend to be more dense. So water absorption is lower. We have hundreds and hundreds of projects as bulkheads and lake fronts and things like that. I'm going to actually have Jillian pop up a video here real quick. When that goes up, I'm going to go off screen so you won't hear me. But this is a project right there in just outside Toronto in Ontario. So absolutely it can. Tons of resources on that application and construction process. So if you've got questions, you got projects, reach out and we can help get you best suited for that. Next question. I'm gonna hand this back over to Nick on how tall can we build without using grid.
The typical rule of thumb for a gravity wall is about that 6 to 7 foot mark. Um, Almost all the sections show up in that 6 to 7 foot height. Any higher than that, I would start getting into some other options.
Absolutely. And remember, we're not saying without engineering, we're saying without grid. So follow your engineering process, most likely after 4 foot. But yes, without a doubt, 6 to 7 feet, typically gravity applications.
In Ontario, it's 1 meter. So that 3.3 feet is where you want to be thinking about an engineer being involved. Even if it's in a backyard and you know you're not going to necessarily need it, keep that in the back of your head so you don't get in trouble down the way when you're half built.
Another question is how do I install drainage with these types of walls? So with those standard SRW units, there's a lot of products out there that you can insert. They're real narrow so that you're not messing with your bond line a bunch. But there aren't large scale items like that for big block, especially when we're talking, in this case, both outcropping and Grand Ledge are 12 inches tall, or the larger height units. So the picture on the right, that's a slit drain, driveway drain, whatever you guys call it in your markets, but you can buy these ADS, advanced drainage systems, sell stuff like this. Box stores have these that you can buy. And the beauty is they're typically about 3 foot long or so. So you can cut them down to a 12-inch height or a 12-inch length, turn them vertical. And on the back side of these or on the bottom, there's a connection for a 4-inch and a 6-inch corrugated pipe fitting. So whether you ran a 4-inch corrugated pipe or a 6-inch corrugated pipe, you can put your T into this. And like that picture on the left there shows it in the wall. We're just separating the wall units and sandwiching it together so that you're not having to cut and core. You can cut and core. If you're just going to run a solid pipe out the front, yes, you can do that. But this is one of the greatest ways to, again, just be more efficient, not having to mess with that. It's got the grate on the front so you can keep all the critters out of it. And it just looks nice and clean. So that's a great way to do drainage. Next question is, how many square feet can I install per day, whatever? Nick, I'm going to let you take that.
So we've analyzed this for years because that's a very common question. And the answer we've come up with is, this is Rosetta wide too. This is not just me. When you're installing base course, a good number is you can do up to 125 linear feet. The base is in, like your aggregate's in, your heels are being knocked off. So it's a little slower because the base course needs to be perfect. So you're doing about 125 feet. You're coming into the bend. Are you going to slow down a little bit? Probably. Once the base course is in, you can do upwards of 600 feet or 600 square feet of face on a wall. Up here, 5-axle trailers, 88,000 pounds. That's 22 pallets. That's 396 square feet of wall per truck. So you're doing a truck and a half at a time. Have there been guys that have gone faster? Absolutely. Is there slower? Of course. But a good estimate when you're doing these bigger walls, think of about 600 feet of wall plus 125 feet of base a day with your typical crew of 3 using the right equipment.
Beautiful. So as we jump out here of products and frequently asked questions, I want to apologize because I know we're pushing over on time here. A few slides left, and ultimately, in my opinion, some of the more crucial ones here when we're talking from a business owner standpoint. And ultimately here, this is one of the biggest responsibilities as an owner is removing friction from the job site. And it's so crucial because one slow step on a project slows the entire project. It doesn't take a bunch of things. It only takes one item to be the killer of time, and time is money. Some of those margin killers that we find is just crews waiting on equipment. So are we timing equipment? Are we staging equipment? Is it coming off of one project to another? Do we have the right equipment? moving material multiple times. Now, this is probably the one I see the most. This is, you got that, 3, 4, 5 truckloads of Grand Ledge from Browns, and it's shipped out. And you're just like, yeah, get it to the job site. And they get there and they set it down. And now we've got to come there and we've got to get our equipment in to do our excavation. And we got to get our base material in, but now all those pallets are in the way. We're moving them 2 or 3 times to get them out of the way, to do this, to then do that. That's killing your margin. That's labor time that's being utilized to do things that shouldn't need to be done multiple times. So, tasks happening out of sequence is part of that. Do we have our employees trained back to that standard operating procedure? Do they know step by step, this is what I do on every patio, this is the next step, so that the whole crew is doing the same thing? They're all working together instead of against each other. And then it's having that right equipment again, so that you don't have people doing the work of the machines. If it's grading out bedding material, can my excavator be doing that, so that I don't have 2 or 3 guys in there with rakes trying to level it out before I run the compaction, as I'm doing extra layers or lifts, whatever the case may be. Typically, the bottlenecks in hardscaping, like I said, it's base preparation, it's material movement, it's wall placement. Am I able to do the right amount of compaction? And can I limit the time that I have to be doing compaction? Can I speed that up? So do I have that right piece of equipment? Wall placement, am I utilizing the right tools? Again, if I'm mixing walls with steps, with corners, am I using a piece of equipment that I'm not having to swap out because each one of those are a different size, different weight, whatever? So having the right lifting equipment, and then material movement. Do I have the right skid loader? Do I have a track machine skid loader that's large enough to pull a full pallet of outcropping or a full pallet of Grand Ledge off of the semi truck that Brown's just sent out to me? Can I get it off of that trailer without having to put 6 guys on the back of my skid loader to keep it from leaning forward? Right? Like we need to be able to think about that. So again, goes back to that equipment, people, and proper production equipment.
One thing I just want to add to that, Nate, real quick, if I can, is a big killer in margin too is waiting on product. And when I say waiting on product, to the contractors out there, it's really a good idea. You've quoted these jobs, you've put this whole job together. If you can work with your supply partner, the yard that you work with, to give them as much notice on these orders as you can, no commitment on delivery, but give them as much notice so that they're ready for, as soon as you snap your fingers for the product, they can get it to you. That wait kills you. That wait, you have an entire crew sitting there being paid. And if we can eliminate that hassle, that is huge. So work with the partners to stage everything, to prep everything on paper. So as soon as you need it, it gets there when you need it and then how you need it.
Yeah. And utilizing your dealer partners for, the stone, the aggregates, the gravel, whether it's more material, so that you utilize their delivery systems. Stop putting, one of your people in a truck and sending them back and forth multiple times because you can only get 2 yards at a time or 3 yards at a time or whatever it is. And you're paying them and you're putting miles on the truck and you're putting fuel on your cost. Utilize the service that you can get from all the partners that you have out there. So yeah, there's a whole lot we can dive into in all of that. But this next one, these are 2 very different roles that I know. I speak from experience. As an owner, I was stuck in this. There is a difference between an owner and an installer. And I don't care how big or how small you are, you have to take this into the right mindset. And so this is one of those things from the very beginning. Hardscaping's changed over the last multiple decades. Keep an open mind, and you got to think differently. We get into this business because we're craftsmen. We love to build things with our hands. Very seldom is it just a business decision. So the business side of it is where we tend to need the most amount of help. Be open to hearing that help. And so, to look at the installer's role, that's completing the current job, solving immediate problems, the day-to-day stuff, the stuff that comes up out on the project site. That's their job. Let them solve those immediate problems. Producing high quality craftsmanship. Are they trained properly? Have you done continuing education with them, best practices, and working efficiently within the day? So again, knowing those SOPs, having the right equipment. You as the owner, if you're on here as the owner, it's designing that system. So are do you have the proper training system? Have you done and set those SOPs? That's your job to make those. It's the installer's job to then follow those. Your job is to allocate resources, whether that's equipment, materials, dollars, right? Allocate, the resources that you have into the right areas, building a process, continuing to develop your crews, create a culture, and ultimately planning for the future. You have to be looking at this from a 30,000 foot view, so that you can be ready for the next challenge that comes at us, right? The next business challenge, the next economic challenge, the next whatever that might be. So installers execute the work, owners design the system. Installers solve today's problems, the owner builds tomorrow's company. At the end of the day, you cannot be the guy that every problem still comes to you, right? Like if that's the case, if you're still the one that everybody's got to call to ask, hey, how should I handle this? Or how should I do this? Or I just came up on this. You don't have the process built yet. And you are the bottleneck. You're the one as the owner that is now killing your margin on that project and all the projects moving forward. And then ultimately your margin on the season. So set those processes. I'm going to leave you with my favorite statement here, and I'm going to read it verbatim. So this is called Commander's Intent. This is right from the military handbook. Commander's Intent reads, a clear and concise statement that defines the purpose of an operation, its desired end state, and the key tasks to be accomplished, but not the specific methods for execution. And the reason I like that, and the reason I take this to our business, is that a military commander is going to say, hey, I want to take that hill. We need to take that hill over. And I'm going to send a whole platoon to do it. And we got to get to the top of that hill and own it. And now that's it. He's leaving it to the platoon leader, his foreman, to then figure out the path that best gets them there. He's not there, boots on the ground, getting fired at, knowing that if I take this next step this way, if I would have said, yeah, make sure you go from this point A to this point B to this point C for sure, and all of his guys can't make it, right? Like you can't do that. You have to leave it up to them to be able to make those decisions. Same thing in the field. When you send out your team to go build a patio, to go install a retaining wall, they already know it's all right. We need to go build a wall. You've already built the system by giving them the SOPs, right? And having those steps. Everybody knows that it's step 1, step 2, step 3. Now, when things pop up, things happen that are unforeseen, that you have the faith and trust in them to make those decisions. And that is how that you can achieve that goal as a group effectively and scalable. So you can scale that with 2 crews, 3 crews, 4 crews, and build a sustainable business over time. And I'm going to let Nick throw down the gauntlet here, the final challenge. And I want everybody to take this one. If there's anything you're going to take from all of this, please take this little piece of advice from Nick.
This is very important for business. The final challenge is find 1%. Audit your tools, your systems, your mindset, and look for the small changes you can make. Every day, look for a small change. Too often, we see people or companies making monumental changes or trying to make a monumental change in one motion. The problem is you do that, it's hard to come back if that was the wrong change. Work with 1%. Find a small change. You know what? I'm going to buy the Packer and I'm going to rent my skid steers this year. And that's what I'm going to do. Try it on one job. Now try it on 2 jobs. work it out, because those small changes, you can draw those back if you need to. But if you do little changes every day, you get to 100%. You find your solutions. So I find that a very valuable tool in not just business, but all parts of life. Look for the little changes because they make the biggest impact or have the biggest impact.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Find that my 1% for me is build out that stepped process for building out a walkway, a paver walkway. Start there, right? Build that one out, find out if it worked, and then you can build it out for the rest of them. I love it. So absolutely, small changes, small steps create big results over time. So again, we went over. I apologize. Thank you for those for all of you that stuck around for this. Any questions that have popped up or things that you're thinking about that you saw in the presentation that you've got more questions on, please feel free to reach out. You can follow us on all the social media, Brown social media, Rosetta social media, as well as myself, Hardscape, Nate, and Hardscape, Nick there across all of our platforms. We love to see what you guys are working on. And we are here as a resource. We are here to help. So whatever those questions are, please shoot us an email, shoot us a call. And again, thank you to everybody. Thank you to Nick and to Browns. Hopefully everybody took away a little something.
No, thank you very much, Nate. And I think that was a great session. There's a lot of knowledge we shared. I think it was great. And I want to thank Hadley and Jillian on the Rosetta side and yourself for putting everything together, really making this happen. And Megan from Brown's Marketing and Graphic Design for working with you guys tirelessly. Every time there's a question, a snap of a hat got you the data you needed. So thanks. It was a good team effort.
Beautiful.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much to Nate and Nick for all of the great information today. And thank you to everyone that's still on the call. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you were able to gain some knowledge from this session. We will hang on for a few minutes if you have any remaining questions from the actual webinar. And then if there are any other topics that you'd like us to cover in the future, we'd love to hear from you. So feel free to reach out to us over email, social media. You can text Nate right there and let us know if there's any more information that you'd like us to present on in the future. So we'll go ahead and just hang on for just a few more minutes.
Thanks, Julian.